Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. I'm going to share my screen with you in a minute. And okay. Now, okay. So we started with this. So speaking, while I was looking at representations, I thought it would be interesting for you to see this particular
Oh,
representation, which is um, um, this is Esther and the King, 1960. I never saw it. Did any of you ever see this?
no. Who's
No.
in it?
Anyway,
I was 8.
anyway, it says that it was a B list sword and sandals epic, right? With a huge
Uh-huh.
cast, poor acting, and banal dialogue. Um, and
And they
Joan
loved it.
Collins and Joan Collins was in it, right?
Oh,
Um,
well, she was not the best actor.
right. So I think that's pretty cool. But the other people I really haven't heard of. Um, so,
So why didn't you
but
get a copy to show us?
haha. So anyway, how can I get rid of all this stuff on the top?
Forget
What
it.
is all of this? I have no idea. Maybe when my son comes here, you probably see all of these things here on the top, right?
No.
Yes,
Oh,
we
you
do.
don't?
We
Yeah.
see
Well,
your,
we see the
Yeah,
top
from the
of the,
and
PowerPoint.
everything.
Mhm.
Yeah.
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 Okay. Maybe I'll just try for a change to do something different, which
Do
is to do,
slideshow.
Yeah,
yeah. Okay. I don't usually do that, but maybe I will. Um, uh, I don't know how to get out of it. I
No,
did
you
that the
just
other
Oh, you know
day.
what? You're in
you
you're
go to
in design,
slideshow at the top.
Yeah.
Naomi. You're in a design mode of
PowerPoint.
PowerPoint.
Right.
It's saying, it has all your little new
Right.
slide and all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah. So
Right.
You have to
and
You
get
then
click on
into,
slideshow at the
yeah,
top, I
at the
think
top.
that'll do it.
Yeah, in the top middle where it says
yeah,
slide.
do
No.
slideshow in the middle there. Then
Oh,
you get
there's
rid
the
of all that
text.
stuff.
Where it
Over
says
here.
file, home, that line. Look on
Yeah, up,
slideshow.
up.
Up.
Yeah.
No, up,
Yeah.
yeah. Keep
Okay.
going
Yeah.
over
Now
to
to
No.
the
the
right.
right.
Yeah, go to the right. And there in the middle it says slideshow. Click on that. Of that line.
Okay. Oh, okay. From
Slide
beginning.
From
From
yeah,
okay.
from beginning, yes.
from current slide.
Current.
Now what is
From
this?
current slide. Oh, whoa.
Okay. All right. All right. Here we
There
go.
you go.
Oh.
Bravo.
Oh, wait. No, we don't.
It takes a village.
And then just hit your
Genta.
space bar when you're
I
ready to
know, but
go
I don't
forward.
like that. I really don't like that. Oh, how do I
Oh,
get out of
okay.
that? Oh, I'll tell you why, because then I can't enlarge anything.
It's large enough when it's in slideshow mode.
Yeah, but
Plenty large.
okay, let me just go. S goes out. Okay. Now we're back to the way we were before, right?
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Not, oh, I had all this taped now. Ugh. All right. So what I want, no, the only reason I want this because I can enlarge things here. So apparently, the book of Esther, right, has been, frequently recast because of its unusual features. All right. It doesn't have religious elements. There's no prayer in there. It doesn't mention God, except very, very indirectly, where it says the use of makom, which people say that includes God in there. It's full of hyperbole, a lot of repetition. Um, the book is much too long. I mean, good editing could have probably gotten it down to half the size. And then you also have caricatures. You have, good people, bad people, and everything's very, very clear. All right. So what's really interesting, and hopefully I'll get to that at the very end, the Septuagint actually added a prayer at the very end to fill in this gap. So I can just show it to you. Maybe I'll start. I never get to it, so maybe I'll just show it to you at the beginning. It's really at the very end. So this does not appear in the right. This does not. This is in the Septuagint, and
Ah.
they've added on to chapter 4. Right? They've added on a whole prayer here. All right. and it's also the translation is a little right. So she petitioned God and said, and this is not in the Bible. It's not in the Bible. It's in the
I'm just
Septuagint,
running
the
down
Greek
the-
translation, right?
Okay.
Oh Lord King, you alone are a helper. Help me, I who am humble and have no helper apart from you, because my danger is in my hand. All right, and it goes on and on. It's actually a fairly boring prayer. We have sinned. You've delivered us into the hand of our enemies, right? And they were not. It's very long, right?
Well,
It just goes on and on and on. And this is all an insert. Don't ever surrender your scepter to enemies who hate you. Make yourself known to us in a time of affliction. Do not break us, right? Put eloquent speech in my mouth. They've put eloquent. That's ironic here. Put eloquent speech in my mouth. They have just put eloquent speech into her mouth, right? It's not in the Bible at all. And give favor to my words and change his heart, right? Save us by your strong hand, all right? No, Lord, know my predicament, all right? Um, um, uh, and oh, this is cute. Oh Lord, know my predicament that I abhor the sound of proud position that is upon my head, and I do not wear it except on days when I appear in public. I abhor it, the meaning of the crown, I guess, like a cloth of a woman that sits apart. Okay, and then it goes on. It says, "And your slave has not eaten with them at their table." Why not? Because
Because
the
it's
food
not
isn't
kosher.
kosher. Okay, so this is really cool. So this is all right. So I don't have to worry about getting to that at the end. So for some reason, the Septuagint felt it was necessary to put God's voice in there. So that's really very interesting. So you have different depictions of her. So in contrast to the one in the movie here, where you could barely, she looks pretty, whatever. Here you have, right? You have
Oh,
Queen Esther looking very, very pious. You see her crown, her crown. This is probably the Queen Esther of the Septuagint. Okay, so what's really interesting here, the Talmud, this is an article by Adam Kirsch, who's really very good when he writes things. He's really good. And this is an article that appeared in the tablet in 2014. All right. And it goes on and on. And it talks about that the rabbis have to I apologize to any of you who don't know the book of Esther. If you don't know it, it's time to read it, or you'll have to wait till Purim. But anyway, okay. So we read it once a year. So if Jews are punished for eating non-kosher food, then what about Esther, right? Surely she was living in Ahasuerus' palace, concealing her Jewishness. She must have been eating the same Persian food as everyone else. But they find so they say that the king advanced her and her maids to the best place at the house of the woman, which Rav, one of the rabbis, assures us that he means he fed her food of the Jews. And this is even better. This is all rabbinic. If you wonder how Esther could observe Shabbat in the royal palace, Rava has the answer. Esther had 7 maids,
Oh,
and she would count the days of the week by them. So she always knew when Shabbat was. Isn't that cool? So if you
well,
don't have if you don't have a
not
calendar,
unusual. That's not so unusual. That could be. What is she going to do with all the maids?
that's true too. So it's a great idea. If you don't have a calendar in your house, just bring in 30 people and every
Yeah,
day, have them move
right.
around and everyone could wear something different. That's a great idea. Okay. So now going back to what we said earlier. So she's used as a concubine by a Gentile as the actor in the Yehudim Bayim pointed out. Those of you who came in late, I showed it before I turned on the share screen. So they actually, it's very weird. Why they do that, it's not clear. But the midrash says she was not his ward, but his wife. All right.
Mhm.
And so how do they do that? Because they add the word bat as in. Mordechai took her for, right? For his own daughter, not as his daughter. Okay. And they also changed the word bayit, right, daughter in his house. House is always a euphemism. Even today in Talmudic literature, a wife is referred to as a house, as a bayit. All right. So as he points out, why they wanted to do it, it's unclear. This is still the Adam Kirsch article. All right. So that makes it even worse. She was sleeping with both Achashverosh and Mordechai at the same time. So what happens? She
Yeah,
would
I mean,
go from the
actually, she
lap
should
of
be
Achashverosh,
stoned.
right? Notice they're really sexualizing her. It's unbelievable what the rabbis are doing. And this is really in contrast to the Septuagint, which has her, speaking to God and everything. It's really awful if you think about it. She goes from the lap of Achashverosh, immerses herself in a ritual bath, and then she sits, that's a euphemism, of course, in the lap of Mordechai, all right? And then another rabbi later on says, Rabbi Abba says that Esther slept with Achashverosh only under compulsion, right? Which means that she didn't really sleep with him because it was only under compulsion. So she's not really sinning, all right? On the other hand, in another place, they say she was very good in bed. And that's why they loved her, why Achashverosh loved her more than everyone else. And this is really even worse. You're surprised, I'm sure, all of you, that this is in the Talmud, and this is the way they talk. If he wanted to taste in her the taste of a virgin, he tasted it. And the taste of a non-virgin, he tasted it. Okay, anyway, this is pretty awful stuff, but I thought I would share that with you. And so there are these are some of the midrashim. So this one we just saw, just to show you that I'm not making it up, nor was Adam Kirsch making it up. So that's right here. I don't have to read it. And the 7 maids are here also. All right. And also this whole business. The only thing that you don't have there is her name. And Louise, I know you're very active in Hadassah. So her Hebrew name is Hadassah, right? And so why was she called Hadassah? On account of the righteous who are called myrtles, Hadassim. We have Hadassim that we use on Sukkot. We
Sukkot.
put them into the lulav. Why then was she called Esther? Because she concealed masteret, Esther, you see the word Esther in there, the truth about herself, as it is stated, Esther had not yet made known her kindred nor her people. All right. So why was she called? But then someone else says Hadassah was her real name. Why then was she called Esther? This was her Hebrew name, for owing to her beauty, the nations of the world called her after Ishtahar, Venus, etc., etc. By the way, you know that Mordechai sounds like Marduk. So you have Marduk and Esther, who are, of course, gods in the, in the pantheon of the world. Okay. Rabbi Yehoshua ben Korcha said, this is a great one. Esther was called Hadassah because she was greenish, having a pale complexion like a myrtle, but a cord of divine grace was strung around her, endowing her with a beautiful appearance. Okay, so,
Wow.
anyway, so,
Why do they there are other examples of people being green, and that's a sign of not beauty, but it's popular as a color.
it's interesting. I don't know why. If you think about it, who's the green guy in the
Look at
cartoons?
The Wizard of Oz.
The
Right.
Wizard
Which
of Oz. She's
is
green. And also, what's
Green.
that guy?
The
The Hulk.
green.
The Hulk.
Who,
Oh,
The
Captain
Say-
Hook.
Right.
No. Hulk.
Hulk.
Yeah,
Oh, Hulk.
of the
Hulk.
Fantastic
Yes,
Four.
right.
Hulk.
Yes,
and
right.
also that
Yeah,
other
and
guy.
the Jolly
I forget,
Green Giant.
Oh,
the
the
Jolly
Hulk.
Green Giant, great.
Right.
And also, not the Hulk, but he looks like the Hulk in cartoons.
Shrek. Shrek?
Yeah, Shrek. Yeah,
Oh, right.
That's what-
Shrek.
right. Shrek. He's the lovable Shrek. That's
Right.
very interesting point, Marcia.
Well,
Agreed.
when I don't
Okay.
sleep at night, I think of things like that.
Okay, good.
Actually,
Wish
which
I could
ties
think of things
in
like that when I can't
because
sleep.
in Hakevas Shishazar, the 16th lamb which is a series of poems written by Yonatan Geffen.
Mm.
He has a story about the Green Man.
Oh,
There's a whole story about so it all ties together.
hmm.
Okay. So much for green.
Yeah.
So
Sorry.
we also have the idea that Achashverosh only engaged in sexual. He did not engage in the sexual relations during the day, but at night, and that's why she was able to go in the morning. You know, she went in the evening, and in the morning she returned. That's their that's their description of that, and okay, we saw that one. And this one, about menstrual blood. Oy, okay. You could read that for yourselves. I don't have to necessarily repeat that one. Okay. All right, let's go on. So now in the Sanhedrin, you have a really interesting question. Wasn't the incident involving Esther, her cohabitation with Esther, a public sin? Why then did she not surrender her life rather than engage in intercourse? The Gemara answers, okay, this we this is worse than what Adam Kerr said. Esther was merely like natural grounds, karka olam. She was a passive participant. The obligation to surrender one's life
Oh, God.
rather than engage in forbidden sexual intercourse applies only to a man who to a woman who is passive and merely submits is not required to give up her life. So in other words, if you don't enjoy, right, or if you're raped and nothing, and you just are passive, you don't have to give your life. That's very interesting, I think. And I think this is something we should remember, because very often when a woman is raped, she's considered not to be holy, right? But here, it's quite clear that it's better to be raped and not, um, if you
Not
think about it, think about the Hanukkah stories where all these women were committing suicide rather than be raped by the Greeks. So it's very interesting comment. Okay, so I think that's very interesting.
In a way, is it a way of thinking positively about the woman by the rabbis?
I think so.
Generally,
I think
yeah,
so.
generally
Yeah.
they're negative, but this is a way to say, well, it wasn't your fault.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And by the way, after the Holocaust, a lot of rabbis had to discuss things,
Yes.
could you take back your wife, assuming that both of them survived, and, in theory, they committed adultery, but most of the rabbis, really made,
Found they tried
decisions
to
that
find a way.
it was bad enough, and they did not make, okay. Now,
I wonder though if
but
this positive view is because it is Esther, and in hindsight she became a hero.
maybe I haven't looked at those responsa
It
in a
could be.
long time, but I wouldn't be surprised if they could have used this as precedents. Absolutely. So, my Esther Fuchs, I don't know if any of you know the name. She's a somewhat radical feminist. And I like her a lot. She really, we met years ago in Tel Aviv, and she invited me to be in a conference many years ago. I think she lives in Arizona. She's at the university there. I think in not Phoenix, the other place.
Tucson.
Tucson, right?
Tucson,
Tucson, yeah. So she talks about Esther as an accommodationist, all right?
Oh,
Um,
God.
so she sees her as in competition with Vashti and Mordechai, all right? In other words, that each one is pitted against each other. So they're to a certain degree, they're all they're all in disadvantage or minoritized, right? Disadvantaged because they're Jewish, minoritized because they're, Esther and Mordecai are minority, and that they are pitted against each other. And so she mentions also the competition between Haman and Mordecai, right? This is all a summary of what, she writes. So she sees the relationship between them as coordinated and not as competitive. So although they are in competition, but she doesn't see that. In other words, because what happens? Esther rises as queen after Vashti's exile. She's not the cause of Vashti's being exiled. Notice, by the way, no one knows if she was killed or not. So a lot of people read it as an exile and not that she died. All right. And also the difference between description and prescription. Esther describes the landscape the way the book as it seemed. It does not prescribe it. So even though there is a gendered landscape very clearly between men and women, but it doesn't prescribe it. It doesn't say that's the way it has to be, right? And she even goes further by arguing that the book laments and protests the gendered landscape. So in other words, that everything that's happening there is not what should be, but what is described as being. So that Esther, rather than being an agent of Mordecai, is actually a heroine or a hero. Okay? I think that's very, very interesting. So the whole description of them work together to make fun of patriarchy and also the imperialism of the Persian court. Would any of you like to comment on that? Because she's basing, let me just stop sharing for a second. She's basing this observation on what? If you remember the opening of chapter 1, how does chapter 1 begin?
Well, that with the feast, reads like a parody of leadership.
By the way, do I sound better or worse on this?
You sound
My new
You
congested.
sound very hoarse.
Yes.
Hoarse, I know, but is my voice clear?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I don't hear you that well. Have to adjust it. Okay. But that's why, so speak up when you're speaking. So there's that, the lampoon, and then afterwards the lampooning of that every man will have to, give it to his wife, and that's why she has to be gotten rid of. So if you
But-
look at the whole first chapter as one big satire, yeah, Marcia?
Well, it's like the King and I story, or China, and I went to China for a Holocaust conference, and we went to the Forbidden City, and there's all these little rooms where all these women coming from they don't have a choice. And it's not, Esther was just one of many ethnic groups. I don't think in this case, if Haman hadn't interrupted, I don't think anybody would have noticed her, because she was just one ethnic person. She like an Afghan or a who's what. And in The King and I, if you recall, because I thought it was a lovely play, the girl had a boyfriend and she ran away and she was killed when they caught her.
I don't remember that. No, I don't remember that. Okay, that's interesting.
Tim, come on, Naomi. It was.
No, I don't think that was in the movie.
Oh, I don't know about the movie. No, I think, and it was in the play, and the book is a little different. But yeah, she was caught. She and he, I think they were both killed because she was the king's. These women are all the king's possessions.
Right. Okay, but
that was
so,
one busy king.
Right. Anyway, I just wanted you to understand Esther Fuchs, right? Not Esther.
Yeah.
Esther Fuchs' view of that. Okay, so let's go on. Share. Okay, so in another article by a man this time, which is called The Tactical Deployment of Strategy, right?
my
So he argues that Esther weaponizes her social liabilities, meaning that she's a Jew and female, against her enemies. And along the way, she saves Jews, establishes a holiday, right? And she exposes the empty myth at the center of the power structure of the Persian Empire. Okay, so this is the core of his article, and so what he also points out to the fact that there's a strong intertextual connection between Esther and the Joseph story, and maybe I'll talk about that one day. It's really fascinating to take all of them and to look at Joseph, who's beautiful, and he's taken into the king's palace, and and he's also sexualized a little bit. If you remember when Potiphar's wife wants to rape her, rape him, and everything. So anyway, so that's really very interesting. And so here, the whole idea that even though there's one law in the house of the king, it's possible to break in, all right? And that you have to be willing to break in by possibly dying, all right? So she is willing to take a chance, right? And go. She tells Mordecai, right? You remember that anyone who goes inside to the king without being invited will be put to death. And so he tells her, well, maybe that's why you were put here, to take the chance. And so she is willing to take the chance. And she succeeds, right? And they have a fast and everything like that. So her bravery in doing what she does is really very interesting. And I think that's the end of that particular article. Okay. We have lots and lots of pictures. I'm going to just run through them without commenting, just to give you an idea. I'll take like a second for each one, and then we'll get to some of the midrashim.
Can you make
Okay.
it bigger?
Yeah, I could do that if I put down my, whoops.
Sorry.
Okay, I'll make each one bigger. Okay, but I want to run through each of them.
Okay,
Okay.
go ahead. I'll be quiet.
No, you're right. One second. I just want to, okay. Here she's being taken right to the palace. Okay. Yeah. This is when she faints, right? When she taking a chance with her life. This another fainting scene. They love to show women as fainting. Over and over again, she faints. Another fainting. Okay. Another fainting. All right. And here we have a more modern depiction. All right.
Pretty.
Okay. And here we have the catharsis, right? Each one is different, all right? She's not fainting here, but she's begging the king. These are old stuff here. Here, look at this big phallic symbol here. Look at that. With the scepter. And here's another one. And here's another one over down here. Okay. Okie doke. And here is a Chagall one. Here's a Chagall one. Okay, lithograph. And one last one. Here, you have here, this one here. And she's holding the scepter here, right? She's holding the scepter here. And I thought this was interesting only because it's very Christian. You see the halo in the back?
Ah.
Yeah, there's a halo there. And the Christians like her because her efforts to save the Jews were likened to the Virgin's intercession with God for the salvation of mankind. And the artist here apparently used the same figure of Esther with an almost identical expression more than 20 years earlier for his Mary Magdalena. Okay, interesting. Anyway, this is a description of the a tender interaction between husband and wife. Esther looks up at her husband devotedly while she cradles his scepter with both hands. Okay. And okay, let's go on. Oh, I have more pictures. I forgot. Oh, I have lots and lots of pictures.
Oh,
Okay. Okay, that's why I said I'm going to go through them. Very, and I went through them last night. I knew there were lots and lots of them. Here's another one. This is a very famous one, by the way. Even though it's 19th century, but it's very famous. This is when she's pointing to Haman, right?
yeah.
You're the man, right? And here's another. This is when Ahasuerus gets up and screams and yells at this is the king in his wrath. I have them in the order of the Megillah, and this is at the end when they're writing out at the end with the decrees when all is well, and they're running the show. This is Mordechai and Esther. Here's another one. Okay, we now get to the midrash that we're going to look at. This is Tamara Cohen, who happens to be the sister of Ayelet Cohen, who is so in this particular book, Praise Her Works, I wrote the one on Vashti and she wrote the one on Esther. Okay, so that's cool.
Mm.
Wait, this is Ayelet Cohen. Not Ayelet, sorry, Tamara Cohen.
Right.
Okay, a nice picture of her also.
Yeah.
So how do we do this? How many people do we have here? Let me go out for a minute.
11.
Mm,
We have
I
11.
can't read today. I have trouble seeing the print.
Okay, so Bonnie will be the first reader, Sue the second, Geraldine the third, Louise the fourth, Margie the fifth, Susan, what number I am up to? The sixth, Barbara the seventh. Stevie, are you a reader? No.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I can. Yeah, I
You
can.
can't read? Okay.
No,
So
I
Barbara,
can.
you can. Okay.
Yeah.
So you are the eighth. And then if we go back, then after Stevie, we start again. So remember your numbers. Stevie is the last reader. Okay, let's share it. And I'll make it bigger because it's really very small. Okay. I'll keep moving it so you can read it. Okay.
I can read it fine. Okay, Esther speaks. The first thing you will notice, of course, is the way that they always try to pit us against one another. She, Vashti, the old queen, she was beautiful, but her beauty was all lies. But I am Esther, God-fearing, they call me. And for that, not my beauty, I am to be praised. It is true I am a believer. But don't think I got here all on faith. And Vashti, she's one of my teachers. Has been since the moment I learned of her refusal that night so long ago. So let me tell you a few things I've learned about beauty during my life in this palace. Then, once you come to know me a bit better, you'll start to understand what all of this has to do with God. My beauty is something I had to acquire slowly. Sure, I always saw how others looked at me, and sometimes I liked it, and sometimes it made me uncomfortable or confused, and sometimes I just ignored it. But it wasn't mine. As you know, I grew up without a mother or father, and without any sisters or brothers either. It was only Mordechai and me. He was good to me. We had many good times playing together in the fields on the outskirts of Shushan. I liked to climb trees and swim and fish, and Mordechai, he was never as fast a runner as I was, and he was pretty afraid of heights, but he kept good watch over me. We used to play for hours, and sometimes he would tell me stories about a Jerusalem he'd never seen. One thing we never talked about was what it meant, our being different from most of our neighbors. I knew we belonged to the people called the Jews, but Mordechai didn't like when I asked questions about what that meant. I could tell by the way his face changed whenever I brought it up.
But instead of supporting each other, oh, right,
Thanks.
okay. Things started to get harder when I turned 11 and my body began to change. I noticed Mordecai looking at me differently. Others on the streets too, but the hardest for me was Mordecai. That look of nervousness he used to get when I asked him about the Jews. Now it was on his face whenever he saw me. Then he started telling me I shouldn't be climbing trees anymore. He told me I had to start dressing differently and be sure to cover my legs, my elbows, even my hair. We started to bicker all the time. I was becoming a woman, and he had no idea what to do with that. Neither did I exactly. I guess we were both struggling against it in different ways, and we both had different ideas about what my transition to womanhood could and should mean. But instead of supporting each other, we just fought constantly. It all came to a head the morning after Queen Vashti was kicked out of the palace. The no of hers traveled faster than any messenger on horseback or any homing pigeons could have brought a king's decree to the farthest reaches of the kingdom. For the first time in my life, I felt I was part of something bigger than myself, a group called women. And suddenly, we had won. Because you have to understand, Vashti was the most beautiful woman in all of Persia. Vashti was the one that every little girl, well, not me, but most every little girl in the kingdom wanted to be like when she grew up. And now suddenly, Vashti was letting us in on a secret. Even if you were the most beautiful woman in all of Persia, even if you were a queen and you could clearly mesmerize 1,000 knights and princes with one sway of your hips, you didn't have to. So that morning I decided to do something I'd never done before. I ran past the markers where I usually stopped. I ran the entire stretch around Shushan's walls in under 2 hours, by far the fastest I had ever made it. When I looked at the sun and realized what I had accomplished, I wanted to share it with Mordecai right away, so I kept running all the way home.
And then crash. Mordecai was waiting for me with his own plan, born out of the same moment of Vashti's no. I was to go to the palace. He suddenly believed it was the only way to save both of us. First, I told him he was killing me. Then, after 3 days of not eating, I had a dream. At least I think it was a dream. What I know for sure is that I met God. She was like a mixture of Vashti and my mother, though of course my mother died when I was 2 months old. So I don't really know what she looked like, but she looked like the warm smell of milk would look as if it were God. And she wore the most amazing golden crown studded with rubies and diamonds and sapphires. She didn't say anything to me. I didn't say anything to her, but I knew she wanted to go to the palace. And suddenly I trusted her. It was like she was holding all of us in her hands. And in order to keep holding, she needed me in that palace. I woke from the dream with an unfamiliar name on my lips, Hagasa. I wasn't sure what it meant, but I knew it was mine. So there I was, learning to put on makeup and shape my eyebrows. And though having all these beautiful women around me was quite unexpectedly satisfying, I wasn't sure if this was what God had in mind. I was smartening up, though I was realizing that maybe I didn't have to fight growing up so much because there wasn't just one way to do it. I think being around all those different women was teaching me something. Every day I saw how varied women's bodies were, and I saw how many kinds of beauty the world is filled up with, and how many different kings of loving too. Then one afternoon, Haggai called me over to tell me it was my turn to go to the king. It was right then, in my confusion at the news, that God came to me again.
But this time I couldn't see her. It was more like a feeling in my body that started at my shoulders and slowly radiated up and down and across my shoulders, so that suddenly, I swear, I was taller than I had been in the morning. I knew I was ready. I also knew that I was going to stay pretty hidden myself, at least for a while. The king had a bad reputation for taking the wrong advice, drinking too much, and, of course, not respecting women. I would greet him with caution, but I would not share too much of myself until I could get a good sense of him. I would keep my Hebrew name to myself. Maybe Mordecai had been right after all. You know what happened next. I became queen. Mordecai thought that made him something special too, so he decided to stop bowing to Haman. That was all Haman needed. Suddenly I was queen of a kingdom planning to exterminate the Jews. They even picked a day for it. When I heard the other women talking, I knew I had to do something, but I had no idea what. Things had settled into such a routine, and I hadn't seen or thought about God in so long, I had almost forgotten about her altogether. I could barely even remember that I had ever had a Hebrew name. When I first saw Mordecai at the gates of the palace, when I saw his face covered in ash, I just wanted to clean him up and send him new clothes. I wanted to send him away like he had sent me away. But then I started listening to him, and I looked at his face, and under the ash I saw a pride I had never seen before. Standing up to Haman had been good for him. He was scared, but he wasn't hiding anymore. He wasn't ashamed to sit there, right out on the ivory steps of the royal palace, and be an eyesore that refused to go away.
That's when I realized wait a minute. That's when I realized how much hiding had been hurting me, too. I needed to be who I was and be seen for who I was. I needed to show my face. As much as Vashti had needed not to be seen that night, that's how much I needed to be seen. And before I could be seen by the king, I needed to be seen by my people. I realized that I would only find the strength to risk recognizing my connection to them if they would first acknowledge me and my importance to them. Do you know what I did? I asked the Jews to fast for 3 days. And those 3 days included the first day of Passover. The biggest risk I took was asking for that fast. I knew that a celebration of freedom would be an empty celebration if it was going to be observed by people sitting Shiva for themselves. I knew many would question my authority, not wanting to listen to the pretty female face in the palace, an intermarried woman no less, on an issue of religious observance. But I asked anyway, and the people, they were so in need of hope that they complied. It would be so much easier if my story ended there, but of course it doesn't. I had kept my secret for so long. I had dreaded this moment for so long, and then I found the strength to take the risk. Soon the king knew about the plot. He was furious. Haman was falling all over me, begging me for mercy. And then suddenly this man, whose hands were grasping my ankles 1 second, was dead on the stake the next. I had revealed myself. I was back in touch with a sense of utter awe at the workings of God's world, a sense of awe at how much God was not up above me, but right there in me, in my decision to act, in the community's decision to be with me in prayer and fasting. And then I faltered. We both did, Mordecai and I.
For then Mordecai showed up with that ring. Suddenly he was living in Haman's house and wearing the king's ring, and he wanted me to go ask the king for more, for the right for the Jews to defend themselves. I did not even think to ask about the line between self-defense and aggression. I lost my voice. Honestly, though, when I asked, I had no idea the rage I was unleashing. I hadn't been out of the palace for a very long time. I didn't know what it had felt like to be a Jew out there, in the provinces over the past year. 75,000 dead in one day. That much rage and fear, I could never have imagined it. Still, the blood is on my hands, our hands. That's why it feels kind of right to me that they memorialize me with a fast day. That's the one they named after me, not the day of merriment and celebration. Because even though I'm proud of what I did to save my people, and I too want to join the feast of celebration, I have grown very suspicious of masquerade. I want us to look in the mirror and not be afraid to see who we are. When it is beauty we see, we should celebrate. And when it's power gone awry, we have to name that too.
Wow. Okay. Let me just see what's the next stuff here. Really want to discuss that with you. So let me just see what we have here.
Who wrote that? Who wrote this?
Wait. We'll talk it in a minute. 1
Okay.
second. This Tamara Cohen wrote this,
Uh-huh.
and she also has a prayer here. And I think the last two slides were the Septuagint, so we actually made it on time. She wrote an interesting prayer here, but I don't think we have to read it, although it is a lovely prayer. But take a quick look at it, right. I won't read it. I'll just show it to you so you could see it here a little bit. And then I really would like to discuss, because she has a political agenda, as you can see in
Mhm.
her. Okay, so let me stop the sharing. So Tamara Cohen is known to really be, a politically a left-wing advocate. Her whole family actually, her father was involved in the early stages. Steve Cohen, he actually met with Arafat. He was really part of the early peace, group, and the whole family is known for that. That does not mean I'm not saying anything negatively, but you could even sense it with the last
Good.
couple of words. That's why you asked that, Marcia, I'm sure.
Right.
All right. There's a
Yeah.
message there. All right. Because what is the message? The message is most of us are so tired by the time we get to the end of reading the Megillah that we don't even pay attention to what's written there. Right. Um, and it's very boring, because boring in the sense that we're killing all these people and and all of that. But if you think about it and you start looking at the numbers and everything, I mean, it's very, very serious. So it's when the Jews are in power, what do they do with the power? And that's what she's asking. But I thought the other things were really very interesting. First of all, who is her God?
Gee,
The she,
She. Okay.
She
So
all
her
the way
God
through. Yeah.
it's a
all the
woman.
way through, right? Yeah. And I
Well,
think
that's
it's nice.
okay. That's okay.
No, I think it's fine. If her name is also of Esther and she's named after Ishtar,
Ishtar.
it's
Yeah.
not clear, is her God the God, or is her God Ishtar? I mean, you have to keep that in mind. I don't know
Yeah.
if Tamara was thinking of that, to tell you the truth, but I certainly am thinking of that. Actually, if I get a chance to talk to her, maybe I'll try to get in touch with her.
So
Her mother
how old is she?
Tamara is, I think she's younger than Ayelet. I think she must be um,
Right.
either mid-40s or 50. I'm not sure where she is in the order. I think she's younger than Ayelet. So Ayelet, I think, is in 50. I think she's in that neighborhood, 48, 50, something like that.
Mm.
But she was really a very, very early Jewish feminist. She put out all sorts of very interesting things in the early days, so actually, I knew her through her writings, and she also knew me. Um, um, yeah.
Yes.
Um, I think her story even, really stands. I mean, her admiration of Vashti. I mean, it's very feminist, isn't it? The whole thing, like
But
early feminism, even, right? Um,
yeah, but it's beautiful. It's really
yeah,
beautiful.
with women together, learning from each other. It's beautifully, written. Um, and keep in mind that this particular book, I think, was meant to be marketed for teenagers. I think it was meant to be marketed like as a bat mitzvah gift for kids. So
Mm.
I think that was the idea.
What's the
because
name of
there's
this book, Nomi?
It's called, you know what? One second, I could just even call it up when I'm in it. I think it's called Praise Her Works. We've talked about it a couple of
Yeah, we've had
times.
it many
Yeah.
times, yeah.
Right. It's the premise behind it is to take the midrash Agadah of oh, look who's just came in at the end to say hello. Oh, he probably got confused with the time.
Yeah.
You got confused in the time. You're just coming in at the end.
Yeah.
Norming, hi. You're coming in at the end. Do you
He's
hear
in
us?
Chicago, right?
Where are you? We don't hear you.
You're
You have
muted.
to unmute. You're muted. You're muted. Okay. Anyway, we'll come back to you afterwards.
I'm in Chicago and I got the time zone wrong.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's okay. I taped it, so
That's what
I
I did
taped it.
last week,
Okay.
and I was right
Yeah.
here.
So,
By
but you're
the
saying,
way,
here while
Norman.
while we're discussing the midrash, and so I'm sorry about that. I guess I should put in the Midwest time
Central
zones as
Central
well,
time, yeah.
Central. But
It's 1
is anyone
hour
else? Is anyone
before
else
East.
in Central here?
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
About
Shabbat
Okay.
shalom, Norman. We missed you.
Yes. Wait. So what were we talking about?
It might have been a good thing Norman wasn't on at the beginning.
Yeah.
No,
So-
are you kidding? No,
He knew when not to come.
I was actually thinking through some of the discussion that maybe it's good Norman's not here.
No, he's fine. He's really fine. He's really fine. Bonnie knows him well. Bonnie's in the same
Oh,
in the
okay.
same community. Bonnie is the only representative from the original group, which is Ariella's old congregation, which was in and we started this because Ariella said to me, you love teaching your stuff, you don't have to do any preparation, you just teach your stuff. And that wasn't, little did she know,
Little did she
during
know.
COVID. What?
I said, little did she know.
Right. So anyway, I think it's a great midrash. I think it really is. And so it's based on the Eshet Chayil, right? And for each verse in the Eshet Chayil, there's a different character. It's a wonderful collection, by the way. I don't know if it's still in print, but I've used quite a few of them. And this might be the last one that I'm using old material, and next week, next week, I may or may not be able to teach. I'm not sure. Anyway, next week, if we do have a meeting or the one after that, I would like to try something new, which is a little more interactive. So we might try something new. I'll make an announcement about that with the group. It still will be my own midrash, but I might have you, with the help of artificial intelligence, doing a little midrash writing. So that
would be
might be a
fun.
lot of fun. Yeah. And maybe I'll preface it. I gave a wonderful, actually, let me turn this off. I just realized we're recording, although it doesn't really matter. I gave a wonderful presentation on using AI responsibly. And that is an hour presentation. So maybe I'll use that presentation next week. Again, I said, too bad. Such a great presentation. Where can I give it again? So, and then that will segue very nicely into the following week when we could then, start doing some interesting stuff.
The following week is Thanksgiving here.
Okay, so it won't be Thanksgiving, right? Although it's not in Israel.
Right.
Wait a minute.
No, I have to watch the parade.
There's a parade. Yeah.
And I have
Wait, what weekend is Thanksgiving? What week is Thanksgiving? The 20th?